take care of yourself. I know this isn't something you'd hear coming out of a teenager's mouth that often, but this is the most important thing I'm going to say to you today. Or maybe not take care of yourself, more like take care of your mind. I'm 16 years old and a junior in high school, and like a stereotypical junior, I overwork. I live every day by teaching myself that I can't take care of my health, of my body or my mind, until I'm successful in everything I want to achieve. Whether it's academics, sports, or extracurriculars. And living like this never made me happy. It rather made me suffocate. I thought to be happy in the future, I need to make a sacrifice by suffering now. But I was wrong. Wrong in the way that I could never be happy in the future if I don't take care of myself now. There were days when I sat down in my room, crying and overwhelmed as I asked myself why I was such a failure. There were days when I looked in the mirror with a face of disgust and disappointment. I ignored my health, running on 4 hours of sleep, skipping meals, and convincing myself that it didn't matter. I lived an extremely unhealthy lifestyle. I thought my health could only become a priority when I achieved success, until I realized that success can't happen without care. Without appreciation. Appreciation for your mind, because your mind isn't just any place in your body. It's the place where everything you experience happens. Your stress, your motivation, and your happiness all start there. And I thought I was the only one with this problem, but actually, in any way, shape, or form, chronic stress affects a significant portion of both adults and teenagers to this day. And what we don't realize is that our brains need a break. And if we're constantly performing habits that strip away from our energy, it won't function any better. The brain is the most important organ in your body, and within it, there are certain areas responsible for specific functions and processes. One of these areas is known as the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a small but powerful structure in the temporal lobe, and it's known for its ability to be helpful for your memory. It takes personal experiences, events, and facts and forms long-term memories. It's also responsible for your spatial memory. That's how you remember how to get back home from work and the location of your favorite coffee shop. Now, when we're building new skills, it also comes into play. It takes what we have and we're learning at the moment and connects it to what we already know. Another area is the prefrontal cortex in the frontal lobe, and it's extremely important for your ability to focus. It filters out distractions and coordinates with other parts of the brain to find relevant information. When you're interacting with somebody, whether it's just saying hi to the person next to you or having a deep conversation, this part of the brain is actively handling it. And another area in the brain is the amygdala. This is an extremely small structure deeper into your temporal lobe, and it's crucial for your emotions. In particular, it's crucial for fear and aggression. When your brain thinks you're in a high-stress environment, it triggers a fight or flight response in this area of the brain. And this response can save your life, but it can also lead to anxiety, depression, and many other mental health conditions. The brain is a fascinating structure. It has the ability to make thousands of computations all at once. Each ridge and each groove in the brain is a way for it to have more space to make trillions of neural connections. Now, if we don't take care of the brain or use parts of the brain as much, they begin to lose their function, and sometimes even their size. This is called brain atrophy, a condition where your brain begins to slowly shrink due to the loss of neural connections. So if this happens, we have to find ways for which our brain doesn't lose those neural connections so we have to use them properly. We have to build habits and a schedule for which our brain can actually function and result in a longer life. I came across a professor at NYU, Wendy Suzuki, and she introduced that in order to have a healthy brain, we must have a big, fat, and fluffy brain. And at first hearing, this is probably not believable. But it's true. The bigger the brain is, or even certain areas of the brain are, the healthier they are, the more neural connections they've made. When we develop neurological disorders that inhibit the functioning of our brain, the part of the brain shrinks. But if our brain is big, fat, and fluffy in the first place, we won't even have these neurological disorders. With a show of hands, how many of you think you live the perfect lifestyle and have the perfect brain? I don't see a single person raise their hand. And that's okay, because even if you haven't yet, you could start now. In the 1890s, a concept known as neuroplasticity was introduced. Later proven in the 1960s, it was a concept that the adult brain that we've studied to never be able to change can actually continue to develop. Even if the change is smaller and slower as we age, it can still occur. Each experience you have and every action you take shape the brain to this day. And because now we know this concept, it leaves us with the question, how do we use this concept to our advantage? And the answer is simpler than we think. It starts with the everyday factors in our lives. And the first, and one of the most important, is something that we sacrifice to this day: sleep. Again, with a show of hands, how many of you think you binge TV shows, stayed up late working, or scrolled on your phone instead of sleeping at night? I see basically everyone raising their hands. And that is okay, because it's not because there's something wrong with us, it's because we live in a world in which our brains have to constantly be kept turned on. Except sleep is actually the time where the brain performs its necessary functions. For example, the hippocampus takes temporary traces of the experiences you have during the day and shifts them to your long-term memory. It also is a time where your brain cleans itself. The cerebrospinal fluid inside the brain actually gets rid of toxic proteins that could have led to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, epilepsy, and multiple neurological disorders. And the brain fine-tunes itself when we're sleeping. It gets rid of neural connections and that we don't use and strengthens the ones that we need. And for our brain to grow, we can't treat sleep as optional. We have to treat it as essential. One night of sleep is not going to transform the brain. A consistent schedule is what actually enhances its neuroplastic capacity. Except for the brain to do its job at night, it also needs material. And that takes us to our second pillar, diet. When I say diet, I don't mean cutting down your food intake. I mean eating food that help the brain function. The researchers have continued to study the success of the Mediterranean diet and its ability to help your brain enhance its neuroplastic capacity. However, diet doesn't just include food, it includes beverages. And one of the most common beverages taken in by adults to this day is alcohol. Even if we think drinking in moderation is harmless, it actually interferes with your sleep cycles. What makes us feel drowsy at first actually comes in the way of preventing you from having a true deep sleep. Except your brain needs that sleep to do its functions. So what may feel like a moment of relaxation is coming in the way of how long you live, your long-term brain health, and your memory. The third pillar of brain health is social interaction. Communicating with each other, whether it's a deep conversation or just a greeting, is proven to make humans happier. Humans are born to be social creatures, and continuously building connections is a way for us to live a longer life. Our life can shorten by 29% if we stay in isolation. So continuously building connections, even if it's just a thank you say to the barista after getting your coffee, actually enhances the synaptic remodeling inside of the prefrontal cortex, allowing that area of the brain to grow. Now, we may think we're getting our daily dose of social interaction through social media, right? We're just communicating on the phone, through text, through call, through FaceTime, but that's not true. Because the interaction we have online is actually different from the interaction we have in person, and your brain can tell that difference. So social media harms you in a way that it trades off with the time you have with the people around you. Every single time you pick up your phone, it's now a sacrifice to your long-term brain health. Social media is also directly related to high levels of stress and anxiety. When we are prone to stress, the brain releases more cortisol, which is actually a hormone that can harm your brain if there's an excess of it. So So instead of strengthening the positive connections we need to strengthen, in turn we're strengthening fear and anxiety circuits and letting those emotions control our day-to-day lives and the rest of our lives. But one of the best ways to handle stress is through physical exercise. And that takes us to our fourth pillar, movement. Physical exercise is vital for the brain. When we're exercising, we release a BDNF, a brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this factor is actually what helps us build synaptic connections. When we're exercising, it also makes us happier. We actually begin to reduce the overactivity of the amygdala, the area of the brain that controls fear and aggression, helping us regulate our emotions. And exercise actually extends to the most important memory centers in our brains, the hippocampus. When you're exercising, the hippocampus actually enhances its ability to make connections. It makes more connections and strengthens the ones we already have. Whether it's resistance training or aerobic exercise, this can still happen. And because we continue to grow this area of the brain, it actually reduces the risk of the onset of dementia by 45% just through exercise. When we have dementia, we begin to forget the people around us, the places around us, and the things around us. Sometimes we forget the names of our family members, and sometimes we forget the way back home. And this is an actual important symptom of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia that's known for it to kill neurons. And that's why when we have Alzheimer's, our brain shrinks. This is a healthy brain, and that is the brain with Alzheimer's. And when I say healthy brain, I don't mean every single one of you in this room has this brain. Because the more often you do bad habits, the more and more your brain's going to look like the one on the left. If you could tell in the hippocampus, which is right at the first dot on the right brain, it actually is significantly smaller and barely exists on the left brain. And when we have Alzheimer's, the brain's shrinking in the hippocampus actually extends to the rest of the brain. So if you could tell, the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer of the brain, is barely there in the one on the left. And the cerebral cortex actually helps us remember the things from a long time ago. So all your childhood memories are gone in an instant when you develop Alzheimer's and when you're constantly performing habits that change your life and that are terrible for your life. The brain is constantly changing, adapting, and becoming what we allow it to become. And we want to allow it to reach its potential and its ability to leave us with a feeling of well-being and happiness, because you deserve that happiness. Just like your brain can shrink under chronic stress, it could grow under intentional care. Take care of yourself. I used to think taking care of yourself could wait until I realized that it's where everything begins. Thank you.